Hi, everybody. Okay, the numbers are going up quick. I am going to not delay much on our start because we only have 30 minutes. So, hey, everybody. It's weird to only see myself and not get to see you. I have to say that I'm humbled by the reaction to deciding to host this chat. This is my very first web chat or webinar, internet gathering, whatever you want to call it. And it was something that I had actually planned to do, this kind of thing this year as one of my top goals, but the universe does what the universe does and actually shows us that we are not in charge and that our plan is really great, but only so that we have a plan when the shit hits the fan, so that we can modify that plan and not start from scratch and have absolutely nothing to hold on to but panic. So I've never done this, surprisingly, and I'm gonna practice one of the things that I'm also going to preach today during this session, that this is actually the best time to experiment and try some things, to really listen and keep your ear to the ground and listen to what people are saying, whether that's your customers, your partners, your friends, your moms, your people, and then to deeply consider what they need right now and how that intersects with what you have and what you can do and what you are capable of. So I thought this is definitely a Q&A, but I thought I would kick things off by sharing some things that I've found myself talking about across the whole 11, I think it's been 11 days, which maybe feels like 11 years to some of us. I've been on the phone or video chats most of those 11 days, having constant conversations about with people that are in crisis and helping them try to navigate, what do I do next with my business? What do I do next with my nonprofit, my job hunt, my restaurant, my freelance work, my kids. Everyone is in crisis and calling out for help. And everyone's situation is different, but everybody's situation is also kind of the same. My conversations, as different as they may have been, have also been a little bit repetitive. So I'm going to start today by sharing some of the things that I've been hearing myself say over and over again to clients, to my team, to myself in my head. And there have been 3 big patterns emerging that I thought were worth sharing. So before I dive into that, I just want to give you a couple of little instructions. I'm not sure how new this is for folks, but I'm going to rattle off some thought starters, but I want this to be more about listening to and helping you. So I'll quickly throw out these top of mind thoughts, and then I want to answer a few of your questions. So if you look toward the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A box. As you have questions, you don't have to wait. Just drop your questions in there, and Katie Laird and Dianella Martinez from my team are on the line, and they will be trying to surface some of the more commonly asked questions. 30 minutes isn't a long time, so we'll get to as many as we can, but then we will be answering and following up with your questions through different content that we release out. We may be hosting a few more of these chats to dive deeper into some of these topics. So please, every question counts. Here goes. I'm going to talk about these 3 quick things that I've observed. The first bit of advice is that your people are your people. So right now, while we're all going through this, don't let your fears get in the way of that. Radical transparency is so important always, but more so in this moment. Open communication is really going to make you, I know a lot of people, as I was looking through the registered attendee list, are the leader of the organization or in a leadership position. So this will make you less alone and also ensure that your team is all in this together. More communication will help you powerfully navigate and survive this together. So be open and over communicative. Everybody's worried right now, and on top of that, they're isolated, which gives them more time to worry. So the less you communicate, the more room that gives them to worry, let their imaginations go, and our minds are in such a sensitive state right now. So even if what you have to share isn't great, like say you lost a client, which is something that happened to us yesterday, or you lost 3 to 4 sure thing new business leads, which is actually something that happened to us last week. If you share that information, then everybody has a deeper understanding of where you stand, and they can better support your survival through this. Sometimes leaders block that out because they want to always appear confident and they don't want to create any worry, but that worry happens regardless. Transparency will help you to decrease your surprises for your employees right now. And the fewer surprises that we all have in the sea of unknowns, the better. Things are changing really fast. And so every day, the tone also feels different. So even if it feels like you've just talked to your team, you've just updated them, keep those updates coming. And as you're doing that, things will undoubtedly start to feel a little bit dark. We're living in the middle of a lot of scary information. So it's important to search for the light as you keep these updates coming out and try and find that right balance of optimism and realism. In addition to the facts, make a pointed effort to search for the good news and the positive paths forward, and try and keep that energy up top in the conversations that you're having. So that's the first thing. Think about your people first and foremost, because they're as scared as you are. The second thing is to slow down, which I'm not doing a very good job of trying to race through this, but slow down and communicate with great feeling. In business, automation means efficiency. So you plan your work, you work your plan, you look ahead and you keep things moving. You autopilot what can be autopiloted, and you focus on the bigger needle movers. So all of that usually works, but not today. So the first thing I would do is halt your plans. Hopefully most of you have already done that. But if you haven't already, stop anything that's scheduled or automated, whether that's social media posts or even something like invoicing. So if it's you that's running this, doing this posting or sharing this information or leading these communications, or if it's your team, get in sync with that team, pull down scheduled posts, do a content audit, revisit your approval process, and add some layers. Messaging is extremely sensitive right now, more so than ever before. And someone who might be junior or even someone who's senior needs more guidance right now and direct leadership from the visionaries on your team. The line from the CEO to the person that's posting on social media, whether that's an intern or an expert, should get more direct. That's really important. So a couple of just like other food for thoughts thing to think about here. How does your Facebook about section read right now, or your Instagram bio? Are there blogs that are on your website that might seem tone deaf because you wrote them a month ago or 3 months ago before this happened? Start to look at some of those things because they can be really important in a time like this. Share critical information. So lots of important public health content is being lost in bad information and non-critical content. So try not to cloud your audience's feed with maybe lazier content or sort of that evergreen stuff that all of us have to fill in our social media feeds with. You want to take a step back from that right now and really just be a champion in helping disseminate the most important stuff. Consider every touch point that your brand has with customers and potential customers. I think one of the most critical could be invoicing and really trying to be empathetic every step of the way when you're talking with the people that you're working with. Everyone is in this as much as you are, and money is always a sensitive topic. So there may actually be no good timing right now to be sending something like an invoice, but we have to keep doing business. And so something that we try to think about is what's the context that they might be receiving? What might they be thinking about when they're getting that invoice? So we took our automated invoicing down. We're sending all invoices manually now, which some people can do depending on the size of your company. But we also added a note that just said, we understand your business is disrupted right now. Ours is too. Please call us if you need support. We understand your procurement process may be disrupted right now. And we included the name of our director of operations, our managing director, and me, and said, please call us if you need to talk this through. So just that added layer of sensitivity is really critical. Another thing that a lot of you might have set up are automated emails. So if you have like welcome emails or auto subscribe emails, will those feel current and timely and thoughtful in this new world that we're living in? And the third thing is that your event plan is not going to ever go back to what it was. So I'm processing this as much as anyone, but one of the things that's hitting home with me right now is the slew of emails that I've received from nonprofits and other impact-driven organizations across the world that everyone, and I mean everyone, is either defaulting to either pushing their events back to a later date this year, which, spoiler alert, I would be very cautious about because I don't think events this year are going to be a thing, or they're defaulting to planning a digital event. And I think this is the natural thing to do, but with not having all the answers yet, the important case I keep making is that everybody, and that means everybody, all of these 27,000 nonprofits we have here in Houston, is defaulting to that without thinking through if it's the right solution because they don't know what else to do. So I predict that two things will happen. The first is that people are going to have screen fatigue if they don't already. Anyone who is still lucky enough to be working is going to be in front of a screen all day like we are now. So at the end of a day of long screen time, will we want to connect through a screen-based event? I think that that's going to feel like work and that it's not going to be the escape or the entertainment that we usually look for in an event. And right now, a lot of us are hopping on happy hours and group video chats and things like that that we never would have done before. But how long will that continue? We need to maintain that sense of human connection, but I'm just not sure it's going to translate to fundraising events. So I just think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle to find some loyalty in that format. Another factor for nonprofits that we've been talking about for years now, but now there's this new context to consider, is that the traditional donor audience is aging. So nonprofit after nonprofit has been hanging on to that golden layer of donors. And a lot of this has been through events and direct mail. Everybody's been trying to figure out how to reach that younger donor demographic and small bursts online. And some people have been successful with that and some haven't. But with both audiences, both older and younger, will now come with new challenges. So with the older audience, if you start to think about these digital events, something to consider is that this group often has discomfort with technology. So not only will we see maybe event fatigue because they're doing more of this than they have been, but we'll also see a real struggle with just navigating these new formats. And then with the younger audience, there will be such a complete saturation with online events that they'll simply have to start editing their social calendars, which will now nearly exclusively be on screen for the foreseeable future. So that's bad news. I don't want to leave you with just that, but some food for thought. Just stop and think about who's going to be online now and how they will be showing up. So we've always followed the policy of like trying to meet our audience where they are. You got to start thinking about where they are and what their life is going to be like now. What else is going to be in their atmosphere? Who else are they getting these new invitations from? And then what were you trying to accomplish originally with your event? Because maybe this is the kick in the ass that you needed to shift away from that country club breakfast or that hotel ballroom luncheon or gala. Those things have worked and we get caught up in those because they are working. But maybe this is the silver lining that you are going to be forced to kind of rethink that. So how can you be disruptive and experiment a little bit with what the future of events might look like? So start testing and learning and applying some of those things because this is really the new frontier. So now I'm going to jump into Q&A. I'd love to get to a couple of questions that you guys have asked. Just a reminder, if I don't get to your question, I will read it and I will respond to you and find a way to get back to you with some thoughts and advice. looking at, oh, I had a question to start from Evan Wildstein. He said on Twitter, on my mind, 99.9% of businesses are small and 75% of nonprofits have budgets under $100,000, many with little or no admin infrastructure. How do they effectively and unaggressively keep in touch with their people right now? This is a big question, right? And it's something that like all of us are going to have to formulate our strategies. A couple of things that came to mind as I thought about this for the past 10 to 12 hours, because we're all trying to figure this out, is one of the keys to succeeding in the unknown territory is to really slow everything down. We've been in this fast content mode, and that reality is changing, because not only is that too much for everyone right now from a production standpoint, but it's also just too much for everyone to take in. We're trying to process a lot right now. Everybody in the world is trying to process a lot right now, and take in this new context. So I think context over content is going to be a really important shift, and we need some space to absorb the information that organizations are putting out. It'll be better if you slow your content roll and allow us some breathing room. And then when you give us that content, make sure that you're not just ignoring the context. A chance also for organizations right now is to really put your visionary out front, or put your leader out front. And I know Evan is the director of development at the Kinder Institute, and the Kinder Institute does a great job of this. Thought leadership is a big part of your marketing matrix. But I think instead of maybe that polished, well-edited letter, people are going to start craving a lot of what we're doing right now, which is a little bit of an impromptu conversation and top of mind thoughts, and something that's a little bit more raw. And I think the organizations that put themselves in a little bit of a more vulnerable position and kind of let go of that overly polished content production wheel are going to win with their audience, because people are going to feel like it's genuine, it's sincere, and it's real time and in response to what's going on in the world, instead of something that feels like it was curated and collected, which is really going to be important to people. And then the other thing I would point out to that is that slower content doesn't necessarily mean slower moderation. So as people are spending more time online, they're really going to be expecting of companies to be quicker in their real-time responses to their questions, especially if their questions are related to some of the things that are happening, or how they should be connecting from you, or what they can expect from you. So I suggest that you be more tuned into your audience for a number of reasons. Be listening and stay really responsive. Okay, so we had another question. Yelp is offering relief to affected businesses using Yelp ads. Are there any other platforms that are offering aid to help those who are most affected? This question is from John Peterson. So different companies are approaching this differently, and we expect to see more and more thoughtful responses as the days and weeks go by. I think we have to step into the shoes of all these companies. Nobody was really prepared for this, and we're all trying to do what I just suggested, I hope, and move slowly and thoughtfully and try to be responsive to what organizations need. So I think there are a lot of social platforms that are hosting useful webinars. If any of you are Slack users or Adobe users, they're offering free and discounted accounts. Facebook's doing a small business grant and offering business resource guides. Canva's offering graphic kits for easy to use design templates. So those are a few of the things that we've seen. But we, Black Sheep as an organization, is going to keep curating lists of these types of things. So we'll keep that shared out. Let's see here, Chris. Molyneux asked, how are you adjusting paid advertising campaigns to continue to drive results during a difficult time like this if your business exclusively relies on paid customer acquisition? So the big thing for us here, it all goes back to messaging. So in most cases, we've actually paused campaigns that don't make sense right now programmatically, and then retooled what we're thinking should stay in the market. So if you think about the value offering and ask yourself, is it something that your customer needs right now? Will it feel predatory if you put the ad out there? For example, we have an event newsletter that we have been conducting lead gen for, and we plan on continuing that campaign, but we're pivoting the content of that newsletter to continue to add value and making it more centered on the context of the kind of information that people are looking for now. So in a lot of cases, we're actually recommending pausing advertising. But if you can't afford to pause advertising, I think you have to be really considerate of what that message is and be very careful not to make it feel like adding the context feels like you're trying to exploit the situation when people are vulnerable. So we had a question from Denise Hamilton. Hi, Denise. How are you addressing the mental health of your team members? It's a good question. Well, hopefully it says a lot that my first bit of advice when we started was to put your people first. We're definitely, we were set up to work remotely before all of this happened, which was convenient, but that was mostly so that people could have flex schedules when they needed to, which was usually 1 or 2 people working from home. And now we have 18 people working from home. So we're spending a lot of time on video chats so that we can see each other. We miss each other a lot. But you know, we're trying to take into account that this is processed by everyone differently. And so just remembering to be extra gentle and kind with each other and being flexible with schedules. A lot of us have kids, and so we are trying to sort out how we work from home with our kids, especially in a time where childcare is really limited. So, you know, we're just being open-minded about what this new world looks like. And then we're really trying to keep a sense of normalcy. So paying attention to our rituals. So we have a couple of rituals that are really coveted at Black Sheep. One of those is Champagne Friday, where we all gather at the end of the week at like 4 or 5 o'clock, and we take time out to just recognize all of the things that we've accomplished together that week, big and small, just to recognize all of the work that was done. And so we did that last week, just via Zoom. We all poured a glass of wine and had some time together and talked about making it through that first full-time week at home. So just trying to keep those things going. We also have some values rituals. So we've just, how do we adapt all of our rituals now for this new environment? I think those are really important for morale and just talking and having some therapeutic moments, not just jumping straight into the work, but checking in with each other a lot is really important. Yeah. So Brian Potter, long time no see friend. How can businesses be thought leaders in their industry during this time? Well, you know, I think it kind of depends on the industry that you're in. Some people might wonder why I'm hosting this webinar and who am I to have this conversation, but our company is about activating people around things that matter, and right now this matters, and we're all going to be activating in different ways. So I thought it would be therapeutic to jump online and use my strategy mind to have a conversation. So I think the biggest way, I mean, it's hard to answer you specifically, but what people have to do is look inward and try to figure out what they're capable of, where they can add the most value, and then to put it out there. I also think that going back to the experiment idea, we should just all be trying some new things and really shedding the mindset that everything has to be perfect, because everything is far from perfect right now. And I think human connection and authenticity is more important than it ever has been, if that could be possible. And so we just need to be having real conversations and looking at the real assets and talents that we have and how they can make a real impact in this completely unknown landscape that we're in the middle of. Justin Lacey, can you be more specific about how your expectations of productivity have changed with your staff working from home, especially those who live in a dual income households with toddlers and preschoolers? The kids don't understand, and it's hard to deny their need for attention. Oh, Justin, I can relate. I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and last week we had no childcare. So my husband, who also is an entrepreneur and has a business in crisis, and I were trying to not lose our minds last week as we had these sweet little people needing us and not understanding. And we've got a few people on our team who still had kids at daycare last week, and this week they'll be, kind of stepping into the territory that we were in last week. My mom moved into our house last week, so my life is saved right now. It's the only reason you don't see children running around in the background of my studio right now. I think business leaders are going to have to make some tough decisions, and they're going to have to be creative with how they think about all of this. Something that I read, I can't remember who it was, but something that I saw on one of my social media feeds was that somebody was considering swapping their work days to where they were spending some time on the weekend as official work time because of how it worked with their childcare situation. So I think we kind of have to be willing to blow up what is traditional as far as the work schedule. I personally have been doing a lot after the kids are in bed at night. I have been taking care of my most difficult tasks first thing in the morning before the kids are awake. And then I try and work around their nap time. So my most productive times are in the morning before they get up, nap time, and then in the evening. And I don't know how sustainable that is to the long term. And thank goodness I had family close by that could come help out. But I think we're all going to have to be in this together. And the decision makers, the leaders of the company are going to need to be flexible in new ways. And then people who have kids who are on the team also are going to need to be creative because the show has to go on. And there's a lot of adapting to do right now, which is actually creating more work in figuring out how it should all work. So, just taking it day by day. And for the kids, I think nothing can replace just like a few moments of play with them. And so one of the things that I've been doing in my most stressed out of moments is just walking away from my desk and going and playing with my kids, because if I play with them for 30 minutes and then come back to it, I feel better and they feel better. And that buys me a little more time to be focused. So I don't know, it's one step at a time. But I think there needs to be understanding as much as there can be on both sides, from the team member and the leader. So Danuta asked, I've heard a lot of questions recently on how to tackle messaging if your nonprofit mission doesn't address an immediate need in response to COVID-19, like food, housing, education. How would you recommend continuing to fundraise and raise awareness without appearing insensitive to essential needs that are taking priority right now? That's a good question. Fun fact about Danuta is that she is our newest account director. She currently lives in Virginia, and she was going to be moving here. Now she's going to stay put in Virginia for a little while because none of us are working in the office anyway. But interesting things to think about onboarding a virtual employee without being in the office. So that's just a side note. I think it's a really great question, and something that probably a significant portion of the people on this call are facing is you are impacted by this, but you are not directly tied to making an impact related to this crisis. And there certainly needs to be sensitivity to that. And as much as you can, you need to try to plan for and put into context the work that you're doing and how that might be factored into people's decision making at this time. I mean, we do all have to survive this, and fundraising must go on, but I think taking a breath and really thinking through the strategy before you start reactive decision making is going to be important. It's going to be a difficult situation for the nonprofits that find themselves in this space, but I do think loyalty will continue, meaning that if someone holds a dear place in their heart for a particular museum that might be struggling as a result of this, or a early childhood education organization, or an arts organization, any of these things, I do think that people will certainly understand that everybody is impacted by this. And I think the messaging just has to be very carefully thought out. How are we doing on time? Okay, so a couple more. Oh, we're running out of time. Okay, I'll answer one more question and then do some wrap up. Let's see. As a marketing coordinator for a mixed-use property, do you have suggestions for how to support the retail, restaurant, entertainment tenants who are currently closed? I actually know a few people who could be asking that, but that's from Katrina. So if you have a social media presence for the property, sharing content from those retailers, if they have to go options or online shopping, so some sort of email roundup of how to best support those retailers, I think could be one simple way. Who's offering what, that sort of thing. Making sure that any of their websites are updated with that information. I also know that my good friends that are in a similar business actually helped their tenants by making up to-go parking signs and delivering those out to their businesses. Hi, Monica, if you're on. And so trying to get creative with what are their circumstances, what are they going through, and how could you maybe provide them some tools to support could be another way. So that was my last question. I just want to thank you all for joining, and to remind you that if you have questions that didn't get answered, to please drop them into the Q&A box. Just to close out, what's next? We're trying to determine if we should keep doing this, how often and what format and all that good stuff. So do me a favor before you hop off today, in the chat box, which is at the bottom of your webinar screen, leave me a note about what you need help with, what you're struggling with, or just how you're doing. I would just love to hear from you and to get a little bit of insight into how we can best help you going forward. This was really broad. I'm happy to dive deeper and be a resource in any way we can. So your sharing that will help us do that. I am planning to do at least one more of these chats, depending on what happens between now and then, and your questions will make a call on how to take these conversations. Accessibility and flexibility really matters now more than ever. So we will record any of these videos that we make together and share them online. And just to close out, this is me wanting me do the right thing and not just be reactive. So we want to see what you need, and then we might start to rotate in other experts and have other team members do deep dives on the content that you care about. So if you have any ideas for that, just drop me a note, keep in touch, and please take care of yourself and each other. I look forward to hearing from you. It's comforting every time I do. So thanks for joining me.